Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode something of Lesbian Talk. I am not saying what number it was because last time I got it wrong.
It's true, and when I edited it, I had to put up a caption. Hagen was wrong. It's actually episode this. Don't worry about it.
But they probably know that because they were watching it. You know, they have like the number on the screen.
Yeah, or they downloaded it like that.
And apologies again for my terrible audio quality. I don't have a very good mic, and I don't have a very good computer, and I don't have a very good country to put it in, and I don't have a very good Omega living beside me.
What?
I live far away from you. That makes my audio quality terrible.
Or you could have just said that your computer that you record this on is in the pit of snakes, and that's why it sounds like that because it's all the background snakes.
Well, I haven't noticed any snakes, and myth says that there are none over here.
That's true. All right, never mind. Continue.
I will continue continuing. Well, guys,
So, hmm?
go ahead, honey.
I was going to introduce the word, but
Well, we have a spectacular episode of exciting stuff today, starting with a word from last week, which is
ransack,
yeah,
which means
ransack.
about what it sounds like it means.
Well, it sounds like you ran off with a sack.
Well, to ransack, to, like, cause a fuss, like Vikings, to
I
pillage
suppose.
and plunder and
I
utterly destroy and steal all the stuff and eat all the pies and all sorts of stuff like that.
just think if you have the crappiest Viking who takes part in ransacking an entire city and then runs off only with a sack.
No, that would be Sven, remember from that Jack Black Viking movie we're gonna make?
Oh yeah, and then he ends up in North America.
Yeah. We never did think of a good title for that. So if you have a good title for that, write the show and tell us.
Yeah, or you can look back for the episode. I think it's called Texas Chainsaw Vikings to understand what we're talking about.
Yes. Basically, we're never gonna make a Viking movie, is what that comes down to.
Might. We
That's
could,
true.
we could, have the Vikings played by people in the modern day and have the past played by the modern day and, film it in like your house with Kippers as a boat.
That would be really bad.
It would be really weird. We'd have people sitting on Kippers.
He wouldn't like that. He's over on his chair sleeping.
He's always sleeping when we're recording. The people will
Because we're
think that he
always
doesn't exist.
because we're always recording in the middle of the day, and I mean he was running around earlier this morning because I cleaned out the closet and a whole bunch of his toys were back there because apparently I guess he's been stashing them in the back of the closet. So he was running around and chasing things for a while, but when I put his sheep up on top of his scratching post to get it out of the way because I kept tripping over it and he pulled it down and started biting it. So
He loves that sheep.
he does. Sometimes I'll
Irish Razor. It sings whenever you hit its paw, and Kippers likes to attack it.
Well, the first time it happened, she was like, "Oh, look, I got you a sheep, and look, if you press its paw, it sings." And we put it down on the ground, and the cat freaked the fuck out and started like attacking it on the neck and carrying it places and biting it some more until it stopped singing. So, but now it's just become his toy, and he likes it.
Yeah, Kippers is a very entertaining cat.
Would you say he ransacked the toy? Actually, that's
Possibly, although I don't think Kippers can really ran anything.
he can run.
Not very well.
Well, cats aren't known for their running prowess. They're more like sneaking and creeping kind of animals.
Cheetah was here, argues with you.
Yeah, but cheetahs are like, okay, I mean like house cats. Big cats are optimized for that kind of life.
Well, the domestic cats, they will run,
They
but,
will run, but they're not like long-term runners.
yeah, they're sprinters.
Yeah, like
They're I'm gonna run at you and kill you type cat type things.
yeah, like it's not a distance kind of thing. Like a dog, I could see doing distance running, like running for just a long, long time. But cats are just kind of like, all right, I escaped that. I see no need to run anymore. Or I caught that thing. I'm not running anymore.
It's like, oh, fuck you all.
And again, if you have information that differs, write the show.
Yes, definitely. Though we're never wrong.
Ever, except
Um,
for when Hagen's wrong.
sometimes happens.
I'm never wrong, though. I'm never wrong unless it's something really trivial, and then she'll be like, "No, honey, because things and stuff," and I'm like, "All right, fine, it's not important." No, but see, because and I'm like, "No, I don't care anymore." No, but see, and then I'm like, "All right, I'm done.
You no longer care.
I don't care anymore. It's not important. It never was. I don't care. Okay, bye."
I want to divorce you.
Yep, time to divorce.
Let's go to Texas where they can't divorce us.
I don't want to go to Texas. It's a hot place there, and people are horrible, and also there are scorpions just like around.
So we want to go to Austin, where it's weird and eccentric. It's basically like San Francisco in the middle of Texas.
But it's hot. Why would I ever want to go to a place like that?
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
I
it's
know you
hot.
want to go there for vacation, but you know.
Oh, yeah, don't want to, don't really want to live there, but I would like to visit. It sounds like an interesting place to be. Plus, they got that public access show that I watch.
I think that's literally the only reason why you want to go. And you
Nah,
talk
because they
yourself.
also have a castle.
All right, but
The castle was built by the guy Richard Garriott, who invented the Ultima games.
oh yeah, the crazy guy that Yahtzee and Spoonie are always making fun of.
Yeah, he's great. He's totally insane, and he has like a he turns it into a haunted house every year.
I don't think I'd really like want to go see him. Like in the same way, I don't think I want to meet John G. and Castro. I don't think I want to meet Richard Garriott if he's like actually mentally ill. If he's just putting it on, like the guy with the used car still, like it's crazy at these cars. That's fine. But if he's actually mentally ill, I don't want to go over his house.
I don't think he's mentally ill. It's he's a human being with human being with but with the restrictions of money removed.
So he's eccentric.
Yeah, so you can do things that the rest of us can't afford.
When someone's crazy but they're rich, we call that eccentric. If someone's crazy and they're poor, then we call it crazy.
Yeah, but there's in between those two. There's also just someone they've got money, and so things that we would consider ridiculous things to spend your money on, they can afford it.
That's true, I guess. So, yeah. What an interesting show we have for you today.
Very interesting.
Well, there's a castle somewhere in Phoenix because a friend of remember I went to go visit that friend of mine. Well, you don't remember because you don't know me then, but I went to go visit my high school best friend and her husband, and they lived in Phoenix for a while, right across the street from like this huge like forest of cactus and cacti, and then like at the end of it there was this old like castle from like the 1920s that was in the process of being renovated, but we couldn't go see it because it wasn't done yet, which I found disappointing. There were also lizards there. The end.
Lol. Old 1920s.
Shut up, it was. Just because you think the 20s when it's old is like the 1620s, not everyone is like that.
Lol. Old 20s.
Mm,
You have a completely different concept of old from me when it comes to
because it
buildings.
was okay, if it was before my time, it was old. If it was before my parents' time, it was really old. Although my grandmother, my babchi, I think she was alive in the 20s. Yeah, because she's 93, so she must have been.
One of my grandparents were around that age.
So they remember the days, when everything was deep fried, not just some things.
Yep.
Wah, wah, wah.
Everything's always deep fried.
Even breakfast cereal.
Damn right.
Frosted deep fried Lucky Charms. Oh, God. They're not magically delicious.
We're really off topic, aren't we?
We are, but anyway, to ransack. Whenever I think of ransacking, I think of, like, when Rome was sacked.
Yeah, and interestingly, like out of all the ones who destroyed Rome, the ones who got like the ones who got the worst reputation out of it was the Vandals, even though they destroyed less of Rome than a bunch of other people who did it.
That's where we get the word vandalism.
Mm-hmm.
I forget who was the last group to sack Rome, but I know it was in 410 AD.
That's
I
probably.
want to say the Mongols, but I think that might not be right.
Uh, I get the feeling Rome was like. How do you describe sack?
No, because that was the 2-year siege when finally like they were committing cannibalism inside, and I think it was like one of the Gaelic mobs, or one of the Germanic tribes. It was some Northern Europe tribe, and finally they one of the senators opened the door, they opened the main gate, and they were looking for food, but they didn't find any because Rome was starving from the inside, and they basically left, and that was considered the final sacking of Rome. That one Greek historian said, "The mother of the world has died." That is the event that precipitated the Dark Ages in Europe. Or
I
so says the History Channel documentary, The Dark Ages.
honestly, I'd guess for that one it was probably Germans of some type.
It's always the Germans' fault. Hey, look, honey, you were right. This time it really was Germans.
It is always the Germans.
It's never the Germans, except for this time.
Germans,
To
Germans,
preface,
Germans.
if you've just tuned into our show for the first time, sometimes I will say to Hagen, "Hey, honey, guess what?" And she goes, "Germans." I'm like, "No, it's not Germans." Like I would have been about to say, like, "Oh, there's a show on that I want to watch tonight," or "Guess what I made for dinner?" But it's never always Germans. I don't know why. Do you wish you were German? Is it like a cultural thing?
No,
Why?
I used to do it with Welsh.
And then, well, she sued you.
No, it's just silly.
I see. But yes, ransacking.
Ayn
I
Rand
wonder,
sacking.
I wonder if that's where, like, metaphorically you get the idea of teabagging. Because it's like sack. You're sacking, you're teabagging their culture. I don't know.
Sounds a bit unlikely.
Oh,
I don't know. It sounds. I'm pretty sure that that's not the case.
no. That would have been really cool because I'm like, see, history all goes back to World of Warcraft.
Why does it go back to World of Warcraft?
Well, because that's the, like, in MMOs, you teabag other people. Especially if you're on the Horde and their alliance or other way around.
Hmm.
I don't know. I had like a 60-day subscription to World of Warcraft a few years ago. It was a present, and that's what I gleaned. I didn't really play with anybody because I'm antisocial. So I basically quested around, and then I was like, this is not fun, and my laptop is overheating, so there you go.
Then when we were in New York, yeah, the guy telling us all about his World of Warcraft stuff.
That was so awkward. Okay, so back last October, we went up to New York City to attend the Shea Apocalypse party that was happening at Times Square, which was lots of fun, and if they do it next year, I hope we're able to go, and you should probably go too.
Assuming that I'm able to. Although, I got the
I meant
feeling,
you, like the audience, but yeah, you too.
wow, given that uh, there's going to be a wedding in Baltimore in,
Are you allowed to talk about that?
I'm not saying whose wedding.
All right.
There's going to be a wedding that we should be attending, so I think we'd be in the extended area.
Yeah, that's true. So there you go. But anyway, so we. This is why Apple Maps are terrible because I used my iPhone to try to find us where we were supposed to be, and we ended up on the complete opposite side of Manhattan. But during that trek, we stopped at a Starbucks, and we were just wasting time at Starbucks and having snacks and drinking coffee beverages. And this guy was using his laptop at the table next to us, and I don't know how we started getting to talk, but he started telling us about like his health problems and Obamacare, and then about his World of Warcraft character because I think it was like his internet got turned off for some reason, but he was petitioning World of Warcraft because there was a quest that he had to finish that weekend or else he couldn't do it again for another year, and he didn't think it was fair, so he had to come use the internet at Starbucks. It was this very long, like, complicated thing. And, I don't talk to strangers in public, but Hagen is from the UK and never learned that skill, so she talks to strangers and was, like, encouraging him to tell us a story. And I was like, we should probably go. I'm getting scared.
Well, he wasn't. He seemed to be a nice enough guy. Just very into World of Warcraft.
Well, the thing is that, like, at a convention, let me tell you about my World of Warcraft character is a pretty normal thing to hear. At a Starbucks, I don't know.
What if it was a Starbucks convention?
There's no such thing. Although there might be at some point, I don't know. There might be a barista convention.
Yeah, see, it could be.
I'd totally go to a barista convention. Because I technically am one.
So, we totally ransacked the fuck out of that topic.
Yep. Well, it's like one of those words where there's not really much to talk about. I mean, with oyster, we could complain about oysters, and then I forget what other words we've had, but we popcorn and stuff like that. But this were like, yeah, damn it, the Vikings. All right. So anyway.
With popcorn, we could have, like, hey, this sounds almost like cock porn.
Oh, wasted opportunity.
Very.
Mm.
All right, we are on to another subject right now.
What subject are we on to?
We're going to discuss Rapture movies because I have an unhealthy interest in Rapture movies.
You do. You're like obsessed. I consider you the internet's foremost expert on bad Rapture movies. I'm just saying. Honey.
That's a bit, it's a bit of unnecessary title because there's almost no good Rapture movies.
Yeah, didn't you say there's like one or two though?
Yeah, that's almost no good ones. There's bad but hilariously bad. Hilariously awesomely bad. It's called the Omega Code 2, Megiddo, the Omega Code 2, which was directed by the guy who did Turkey Shoot, which is really, really amazing. See, okay, Omega Code 2 is how you do it right, because the first Omega Code is about the Bible code and how it leads to the Antichrist, and it's all like, oh no, Casper Van Dien is going to fight Michael York, who's the Antichrist. Ah, no, no. But then at the end, the Antichrist is defeated. It's like the entire story of the Rapture and the Antichrist and stuff, which Left Behind took about 18 books to do, in one movie. But then they did this. They were like, holy crap, Omega Code made some money. Let's give it to the director who did Turkey Shoot and see what he comes up with. So, the second one starts off as an origin story of the Antichrist, and it's like, okay, we're seeing the Antichrist, we're getting a prequel, okay. But then it keeps going, and it's like it turns into a remake of the first one, with the same guy playing the Antichrist, and instead of having the hero being Casper Van Dien, who's playing like a mathematician. The hero is the Antichrist's brother, who is the president of the United States, and the Antichrist is like the president of the European Union. And then
how does that happen?
I don't know. It really embraced the insanity of it. And at the end, the Antichrist turns into a CGI devil monster, and the president, joins the soldiers and rifles them to death.
See, that sounds like it would happen in a sequel to FDR American Badass.
It is a bit, yeah, FDR American Badass, Christian edition. It's
wow.
See that's like that's an awesome Rapture movie because it's insane. The bad, the only quote unquote good Rapture movie would probably be The Rapture starring Mimi Rogers. It's it's got almost nothing to do with the actual Rapture theology. It completely misunderstands pretty much everything to do with what it's supposed to be about. But it's actually good.
See, every time that you review or plug or talk about a Rapture movie that's really bad, it makes me think to myself, I could totally write a good Rapture movie. I could do it. I think that I could.
You could, you could, but unfortunately the Christians doing it doesn't work because the Rapture, the Antichrist, that is absolutely fucking horrible. And on one level, the Christians who do it will not allow themselves to really get connected with how horrible it is because, they want a family-friendly audience.
Well, it wouldn't be a Christian movie for Christians. It would just be like as a concept because I like that concept. Like I had when I was in elementary school, there was a girl in my class that I was good friends with, and her mother was from the area, and then in the 80s went to go study in Saudi Arabia, and met I forget if he was a doctor or a professor. Her father had like a million degrees, but met him, and they fell in love and got married, and then moved back to America, and then she converted to Islam. And they had 4 girls, and my friend was the oldest among them. And so all the girls were they were Muslims. But she was telling me about the Islamic version of the end of the world, and which basically, you know, as a fourth grader boiled down to, well, an angel will come and blow a trumpet and then the world ends. And I was like, when? Well, we don't know. Well, why? Why would he do it? Well, because God told him to. Well, that sucks. Well, that's just how it goes. I didn't make it up. Oh no, I'm just saying.
I think that actually happens in the Bible as well. It's the Rapture movies don't tend to take that part literally, which is really odd considering they tend to be biblical literalists.
Well, that part I think is from Revelations, because I distantly remember hearing about that. I mean, not topically, obviously, but the rapture isn't even in the Bible, is it? I think I remember you saying that.
Yeah, the Rapture is a 19th century interpretation of something of a couple of things in the Bible. It's not actually quote unquote in the Bible. It's all interpretation that's taking stuff out of you know, the scholars will tell you they're taking it out of context. And they're really, really reaching for it.
Well, I know from studying history that pretty much around the time of the birth of Christ, that pretty much everyone thought it was the end times. And that's why people were, you know, looking for, like, for about 100 years prior to the birth of Christ. People, you know, the Jewish people were waiting for this Messiah that was prophesied to come.
Yeah, there was a lot of would-be messiahs at that time. There's even one who I believe is actually named in the Bible, Simon Magus. And there's
Wow, that sounds like a Transformer. Simon Magus.
it
Yes,
does.
Optimus Prime. You need to go and baptize Jesus. Is he a robot? Yes, probably. Now go. Yes, heroic Optimus Prime. I don't know where that was going, so sorry if you were personally offended. Sorry about that.
There's other ones who I don't think were mentioned in the Bible, but you know that are known about. There's Apollonius of Tyana and Mithras.
Mithras. He was brighter than silver.
Mithras is
It was,
as it's mithril silver.
yes.
He, quite appropriately, he was basically his cult was mainly made up of soldiers.
Because they all wanted mithril armor, and they thought if they followed him for long enough, it would happen.
Pretty much. But the one thing that's really useful about me having my obsession with Rapture movies is that, you know, should the impossible happen and it comes true, I know exactly what the fuck to do. I know whose ass to kiss in order to get through it. So, haha.
Well, here's the thing: if the rapture actually happened, you know, it would be like a lot easier to get by because a whole bunch of the population will be raptured, so there'd be more resources to go around. There'd be more, like, the job market would open up, at least in this country anyway. You could, like, totally take their stuff. And then all you'd have to do is just convert it the last minute, like right before, like, the absolute end of the world. So don't you have, like, a few years to
You've
hang around
the
do shit?
most interpretations say you've got 7 years until Jesus comes, but remember according to the belief, for that 7 years, the Antichrist will be attacking everyone who hasn't taken the mark and joined them. So you know most people will end up dead before Jesus arrives. Either end up dead or join the Antichrist.
Well, you could join the Antichrist and then have a conversion at the very last second and be like, oh my goodness, I have seen the error of my ways. God would be like, I totally saw through that. You'd be like, don't worry, it's fine.
Well, there's actually a couple of different interpretations of it. Some of them are saying that you can that once you take the most common one is if you take the if you take the mark that you cannot be saved.
Oh. Well, here's the thing. So, could you take the Death Eater mark instead?
Quite possibly, although God doesn't like wizards either.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. If the rapture ends up being true, right? If you were in a situation where it happened, then who's to say that other gods don't exist too? So, you know, there might be a god that's more powerful than the Hebraic god. Like, you could, you know, totally go to Ganesh or something like that. And, you know, you never know. Ganesh might love wizards.
That's true. I don't know enough about Hinduism to tell.
Me either. I have the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita somewhere on my shelf. I guess I could look it up later, but yes, that should probably be the title of the episode. Ganesh loves wizards, and then if we had any Hindu fans, well, we don't need more. Sorry about that. We love you. But actually, like, come to think of it, there aren't that really that many end of the world myths above and beyond like Judeo-Christian Islam, are there? I mean, do you know of any?
Um, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said for most of that.
Okay, so discounting Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, can you think of any other major world religion that has a apocalyptic end time kind of thing?
Well, most, yeah, yeah, it's quite common. It's very common.
Well, no, in Buddhism and Hinduism, it's kind of like ages end, but you roll over into a new age.
Yeah, but though across the board, it is quite common. It's not obviously not all of them have it, but
Okay.
for
And I,
the Astari had Ragnarok. The
oh yeah, I
it's
forgot.
it's a lot of the unfortunately a lot of the religions we have connections to and over where we come from are all going to be influenced by Christianity and stuff. So it's a hard so it's really hard to be objective. But as far as I can tell, it's quite common.
Well, because I mean, an origin, like literally, there's no religion without an origin myth, except Scientology. Oh, zing. But because I was reading some article yesterday on the internet that was aggregating like the most common forms of origin myth, and it was really cool. See, I should have been a cultural anthropologist. I just think those things are neat.
You think that cultures are neat?
When I was in college, when I took sociology, and I thought it was amazing, like all of these theories and stuff like that, and I called my mom and I was like, sociology is awesome, and I think it's cool and all of this stuff, and she goes, sociologists, and I was like, what do you mean, and she goes, all they do is sit around in rooms and think up theories they don't have to prove. Not like psychologists, we have to prove our theories. And I was like, oh snap. Yeah, so what I said is I said Scientology before I meant sociology, because sociology is awesome. Although, do you want to know the first thing that we learned in Sociology 101?
How to say sociology 101 very fast?
No. I had this young professor, and she was really cool. And so we were going over the textbook and the curriculum for the year. She's like, okay, I need you to close your book and everyone look at me. And so we all did it. And she goes, I need you to repeat after me exactly the sentence I'm going to say next, okay? We're like, all right. She goes, Karl Marx. And we're all like, Karl Marx was not Russian. We're like, but was not Russian? And we're all looking at each other in disbelief. How could our teacher mislead us like this? She goes, Karl Marx. And we said, Karl Marx was German. Was German? And that was the beginning of the rest of my life.
The yeah,
I really did think Karl Marx was Russian until I got to college.
if I remember correctly, I don't think he actually ever set foot in Russia.
No, he didn't, but it's because, when you're around here, like in like the liberal East Coast, you only cover certain parts of history. Like we've done the Harlem Renaissance like 3 years in a row. You do the Revolution, you do the Civil War, but not the battles. You do World War II, but just the Holocaust, or the atom bomb. But they don't really cover the Russian Revolution or where Marxism and communism and socialism, where all that stuff comes from. So it's kind of like hand-me-down history,
Yeah,
as it were.
yeah, and you know where Karl Marx is buried?
Isn't he buried in London?
Yep, he's got a grave in London. One of those old cemeteries, so you can be all like, "Hey, look, there's famous people."
Oh, look, it's Karl Marx. I actually only know that because of the Marx Deal lecture about his life. It's terrible. But we have kind of hit the halfway point of the show, honey.
Oh,
And you know what happens then? It's your favorite part. Ray from Metal and Also Skulls. And what Nanowar song are we playing today?
we are playing the song "King."
King of all kings.
No, just King. It's not quite as ostentatious as that, and it's from their album Nanowar. Other bands play Nanowar Gay, and it comes right after the song "Burger." So
Oh, I see what they did there. So it appears that Nanowar really has some fast food issues they need to work through, like what are on pizza in not Italy and Burger King. If we ever interview the lead singer, I'm going to ask about that.
Well, the lead singer, he isn't actually writer. He doesn't write the lyrics and stuff. It was the bassist who I got the most contact with. He's the boss of the band. He writes the lyrics, and he was the guy who went into the pizza rant.
All right, well, we'll interview him sometime. But anyway, until then, Nana.
And that was King by Nana War. Da 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 da.
Da, 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 da. And skulls were had by all. Amen.
Skull. Pronounced skull, but I think, with an O and like an umlaut or something. That's some sort of Norse way of saying cheers.
Skull! Like that?
Skull.
Squirrel. Sounds like squirrel. But anyway, so it's time for the best part of the show, according to him, and that is Giovanni Jones's trivia time. Yay!
Trivia!
Thanks, everyone. So, today I thought we would talk about lobsters, because a lot of you know nothing about lobsters because you're just stupid mammals.
Oh.
So, do you think you know lobsters, Hagen? Do you really think you do?
I try to.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you some questions, some lobster-related questions, and so let's see if you can answer correctly. No Google. Drop the smartphone, none of that Google shit.
I don't have a smartphone. I don't even have a smart minion.
That's probably true. Okay, so what's the name for a female lobster?
A Giovanni.
Yeah, I'm a boy. What's the name for a female lobster?
A lobsterette?
No. And it's not Kristen either. We call a female lobster a hen. Like, get a load of the claws on that hen. You know what I mean. So, you're 0 for 1. Okay, when is a lobster considered a chicken?
I have no idea.
When it weighs about a pound.
Huh. Okay, interesting. I was going to guess when it laid eggs.
Yeah. See, you mammals equate eggs with birds, but we're not going to get into that today. Now, when is a lobster considered a pistol?
Pistol. When it shoots things?
No. NRA card not required when it has no claws, which does happen from time to time.
Fascinating.
Okay, last question. Why would a lobsterman who has shorts want to meet with a maritime patrol officer? And no teabagging jokes, please.
Because there was a tiger?
No, there's never a tiger at sea, except for that one time. So you're going to have to give up on that. Because he has lobsters that don't meet the legal size. A short is considered a lobster that is under 1 pound. So he could be fined for improper fishing.
Oh. Interesting.
So, we've settled the fact that you basically know nothing. And that's been Giovanni Jones' trivia time, making fun of mammals since 2003.
Yeah, well, Giovanni, fuck you!
He's already clattered off on you.
God damn it.
So now that you've been rightly and soundly humiliated by a crustacean, I think it's time for the part of the show called It Happened at the Store. Actually, I think I changed that. I think some episodes is What Happened at the Store, sometimes it's It Happens at the Store. But anyway, if you're just joining us, if this is the first episode that you've listened to, I've worked for nearly 10 years at a large chain bookstore, and I've seen it all.
Is it Wawa?
No, it's not Wawa. Wawa doesn't sell books. They sell everything else. You know, hoagies, macaroni cheese.
Wawa.
Anyway, but I've seen it all and I've heard it all, and this is one of those stories. And this actually goes back to a little bit before the election. Not this past election. This was years ago. I forget the election it was. It must have been 2004. Huh. Anyway, this was when John Kerry was running for president, and there was that Swiftboat Veterans for Justice book that had come out. And so it was a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. I really can't remember. It was a weekend, and I was at the register, and this woman was next in line. Young woman, looked 30-something, and she had several toddlers orbiting around her legs, so I assumed it was her kids and maybe some friends. And she had a whole handful full of books. I said, okay, I can take you up at this register here. And she goes, oh, okay, thanks. And poor beleaguered young woman herding all of these children and going to put these books down. And this old woman, like, comes out of nowhere and butts in front of her and goes, I only have one item, so I get to go first. And I was like, ma'am, the line starts back there. And the young mother was like, no, no, it's fine. Just let her go. Just let her go. And I was like, can I help you? And so she was buying this anti-John Kerry book. And she goes, this is a really good book. Have you read it? I should buy 5 more to give them all my friends. I'm going to vote for George Bush. Who are you going to vote for? And our company policy is that when you're on the clock, you really don't have any politics or religion or views. You're just, kind of an employee. And I said, well, yeah, I haven't really decided who I'm going to vote for. I have to do some more research and, make sure I get all the facts before I decide who I'm going to vote for. And she's like, you should vote for George Bush because things and stuff. And she was just this awful, horrible bitch. So I was like, yeah, well, there you go. So I rung up her book and, I gave her bag and everything. And she stepped aside. And so the young mother comes up and unloads all of her books. So I start ringing her up. And the old lady just kind of stood there. And she goes to the mother, she goes, have you read this book? You should read this book. You should vote for George Bush and things and stuff. And the woman just looks at her and she goes, I'm not going to, because George W. Bush is an asshole. And the old woman, oh my God, like all of her veins started throbbing, her whole face cracked. She goes, how dare you say that? He saved this country, blah, 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 things and stuff. And the woman said, no, he didn't, and I think you're a bitch. And it was great. I thought I was going to have to call a manager. I thought there was going to be a fight. And finally the old woman stomped off and left. And the best part was the young mother had a member card. I didn't even have to ask. She's like, oh, also, here's my discount card. And I was like, you're the best. And that was my story. One time at the store. But, honey, what is our geekly topic for today?
The geekly topic for today is we're going to talk about cartoons from the 80s.
Oh, right, 1980s cartoons. I love cartoons.
Get back to the Naked Killer review where you belong.
I thought you liked that voice of mine. I thought it was your favorite.
I think it's very amusing. I was just being silly. Gelfling.
Gelfling!
This is Omega's new thing.
This is the best thing to say. Like, if you just don't know what to say, and someone's like, yeah, I know, because, things and stuff, and you're just like, Gelfling! Because it's always time to be a Skeksis. Always.
But for cartoons, this was inspired because, last week when I was in Belfast, I picked up the complete run of Mask.
OMG.
Masked Crusaders fighting crime all the time, against Venom and stuff. And I already had Mask, the entire thing on DVD because nerd. And I bought this other one because it meant it was a new version, which was for all of the series in one go rather than having it in multiple parts. So I was going to free up some space, and it was quite cheap, so I'd sell my original copies and possibly make some profit. So did that, and then I decided to try and do something similar with Dungeons and Dragons. So I ordered that on DVD because I have an old copy of the DVD which was really big and stuff. And unfortunately, I received it, and the copy that I received was almost as big. Even though they have since released slimline versions, I got a big one, so I have 2 giant copies of Dungeons and Dragons now. I'm going to sell one.
Wah, wah, wah. That seemed appropriate right then. See, I have an issue because I was born in the first week of 1980, so I remember most of the 80s. And around about the time when Nickelodeon was created, they didn't have a lot of capital, so a lot of the shows that they showed were, cartoons from other countries that they got the rights real cheap and they just dubbed. So all of my fond memories turn out to be Japanese, French, Spanish. It's terrible. Because you can find some of them on DVD in their original language with no English dub or subtitles in PAL. And I'm like, I'm not PAL, I'm NTSC.
Well, you're going to be PAL.
What'd you say?
You're going to be PAL.
I'm going to be PAL, but I'm not PAL yet.
Yeah. Will it become the real world whenever you become PAL?
I don't know. But then I'll have to, think in metric. Do you guys use, tablespoons and stuff like that? In cooking? All my recipes, I'll have to, convert to milliquadrants and hectares.
Well, you can use tablespoons and stuff. Okay. Remember, the UK is half imperial, half metric. So it's like a midpoint between France and America, which is quite accurate.
So does the rest of Europe make fun of you?
Well, just we deal in slightly different things sometimes.
Oh. Yeah, like I would give probably maybe up to $100 for a copy of the English dub of the French cartoon Spartacus and the Sun Beneath the Sea. Although that was the English title, I think it's called Les Mondes Engloutis, the Encapsulated World, which basically was my first exposure to sci-fi as a little teeny kid.
I did not see that show. The
Oh,
old,
it was really cool. It was about these this brother and sister, Matt and Rebecca, and they're playing by the ocean side in their home in France, and their a sinkhole opens up and they fall down, and it's kind of like you remember crap, I forget what writer made it famous, but the whole idea of the hollow Earth theory, that there were all these like worlds within the inside the Earth's crust and everything.
yeah, that was I think that was a pre-Victorian idea.
Yeah, but there was one writer that wrote like all these books about it,
Oh,
and
Conan Doyle wrote the Lost World and stuff with Professor Challenger.
yeah, but more recently though, like I want to say
Um,
like maybe the 30s or 40s,
Journey to the Center of the Earth.
maybe. But they there was at the absolute center was like this was the core of the Earth, which was like this internal sun, and there was this very ancient civilization that had fled from a catastrophe called the Cataclysm on the surface, and they were this enlightened society, and they had telepathy, and they reinvigorated this robot named Arcana and put her on a ship called the Terran, which is actually spelled like Tehran, like in Iran, which is kind of awkward, I guess. But so their son was dying, and they were searching, for a way to fix it. And so she runs into Matt and Rebecca, and they run into Spartacus, who's kind of like the adult NPC, who was a gladiator in one of the Central World, and it was really in depth, and it was really pretty adult sci-fi for kids. And I I found a torrent of it, but it's in the original French. And I took several years of French, but not that much French. So I swear, if I could find it, even if it was PAL DVD, in English dub of that show, $100. I would totally pay just for that.
Well, if I come across it, I will tell you.
Okay.
When it comes to French animated shows from the 80s, the one that I love was Ulysses 31.
Oh yeah, you always talk about it.
Yeah, I get the feeling it was intended to be like a 1970s insane soap, sci-fi, space opera, a bit like the original Battlestar Galactica.
Hmm.
But at some point they decided that they were going to do it as a kids cartoon instead because it just reminds me of like these really really epic 70s, not brilliantly intelligent, science television science fiction. It's and the music is amazing. Like the theme music was done by I think it was Haim Sabin who adapted Power Rangers for the Western audience. But the theme is classic, silly, really really catchy. However, the music used in the episodes itself, I'm pretty sure, was left over from the original French, and it sounds like prog rock. It's great.
Well, see, that was the thing is back in the 80s, there was all this sci-fi stuff. And like I remember that uh the Mysterious Cities of Gold, which is Japanese, which you actually can get, I
Which
think.
which I have.
You do?
Yes, I do. I am holding my copy right now.
The best, because you know what? They would air back to back, so it would be a whole entire hour. And I remember I was living in the house in Devon, so I was like about 3 or 4, and I that was like the power hour on Saturdays. I think it was like Saturday afternoon on Nickelodeon.
Here,
And the
here.
thing is that like they were so great in the 80s, like all of this high concept fantasy and sci-fi. And so for anyone who says, oh well, watching TV in the 80s made kids stupid and unimaginative, I totally have to disagree with that. Like if you compare that to like all the Jim Henson stuff, the 80s are a pretty good time to watch TV as a kid. They
Here.
really like spurred on a generation of
Nah,
dreamers.
listen to this.
Hmm?
There.
You're
That is
banging something.
that was me hitting my copy of the Mysterious Cities of Gold to mock you.
Oh, I'm probably gonna edit that out
Oh,
because people are going to be like, oh God, there's something wrong with iTunes. Oh, Hagen was just hitting something for no reason.
Hagen was just mocking you.
Mm,
Well, you'll see it whenever you get over here.
that's true. Well, did you ever watch Belle and Sebastian?
I recognize the name. I do not recall it though.
I think it was like The Adventures of Belle and Sebastian or something like that. But that was also a French cartoon, and it was this boy Sebastian and his mother was part of I think they were part of a gypsy band that was somewhere in the Basque region, kind of between France and Spain. And his dad was like in a war or something, and then his mother was really sick, but then she went off to find the father or get help or something like that. So he ended up literally, crossing France several times with this big, huge Great Pyrenees dog named Belle, and it was kind of like Lassie but animated. And there was a little puppy called Poochie that went with him too, and it
This
was.
definitely sounds familiar.
I'm sure you can find it, you look it up on Wikipedia or something like that. But the cool thing about it was episodic. Like it had story arcs, it had recurring characters, and it did have a final conclusion, which obviously was a happy one. But yeah, I used to watch the shit out of that.
The
Oh, Nickelodeon, back when you were awesome.
I've got a bunch of kids shows from the 80s in my DVD collection, and every so often I like to get more because I think it's really cool to have them. Plus, I get to compare children's television from then with now, and I, you know, children's television is something that, if children's television is good, it's one of the best art forms that you can have out there because it's being designed to be accessible by everyone, and it really, really celebrates imagination, and it's fairly
Yeah,
limitless in that way.
good children's television, an adult can easily watch and enjoy.
Yes, this is why
And
I have appreciation for kids' television, like good ones. Like I've
like
also got
I can't tell you how hard I cried as an adult when Fred Rogers died, Mr. Rogers, because he was like my first friend, you know? Like when Jim Henson died and I was a kid. I mean, someday I really, and I had several ideas. I really want to do children's television, or I guess children's web television, because that's the direction the world's going in. And in my mind, it would all be as an homage to people like, Jim Henson and Fred Rogers.
the like these shows. Like there's you got the famous ones, which are usually remade later on, and they have their own. They have their generation of fans after the remakes do. Um, but there's shows which are a lot less famous. Like I am every so often I check online to see if they've released a DVD copy of Spiral Zone.
I don't know that show.
It was comparatively short-lived. It basically these sort of disease was created by evil people because diseases are created by evil people,
Of course.
and it was disease or like a force field or something that's conquered half the world, and everyone who lives in the areas that are affected are basically turned into mindless slaves. And so the heroes are these specialist ones who are taking on like the elite of the possessed zombie people.
Huh.
It was, I don't know, it's quite a dark concept for a kids show, and the
Looking
theme
back, a lot of the stuff was pretty dark.
concept wise, yeah, and the theme music for Spiral Zone is fucking brilliant. It's really really good.
See, I got this idea actually when I was watching the what panel was that you guys did? It was like you and Lupa and Film
Um,
Brain.
Reviewing the worst of the worst.
Yeah, I had this idea while I was watching you guys do that panel that again, this would be when I get off my lazy ass and decide to do something. But I want to do a video series called What Went Right, and I want to talk about all that stuff, like Fraggle Rock. Like that was an amazing show for kids. and all of this stuff that was like written off as just 80s nostalgia. I don't know. I probably won't do it, but it would be cool if I did.
It's a good concept for a thing to do. Like there's so many things to deal with. Like I don't know, these shows. I don't know how many of them were big over there or big here or whatever. So we could really pull, so explain, introduce each other to shows.
That would
Like
be cool. I couldn't produce it for PME though, because I mean I would have to use proprietary stuff, so I'd have to do it on my own time. Although I guess, see, if I did stuff, a lot of stuff I would concentrate on would be PBS, like Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Electric Company. So what I would do is, if I used any clips, I would have a disclaimer that says the show does contain their intellectual property, but I hope that they allow this to remain up, as it is highly praised. Because a lot of times, if you post clips from Sesame Street or something on YouTube, there was a case where it was one of the songs, or it was some video that PBS Studios said, actually, yeah, no, people are watching it. You haven't done anything wrong with it. No, you can leave it up. They'll be cool like that.
yeah, but I, one of the shows that I'd like to see out in DVD, the only part of it is out, is GoBots.
I remember GoBots. No, they were like bargain Transformers.
Yeah, it was
Because their toys were like $5.
the
Mommy, I want this Transformer and it does everything and has Optimus Prime and things and stuff. And just like, this is $30. But this GoBot is $5. Oh, GoBots.
Yeah, GoBots basically got the shaft by history. What's really interesting though, GoBots predated Transformers as a concept and as toys. Well,
I
not
think
not the toys, because the toys were the Transformers show was created based on a bunch of Japanese toys. They just got the rights to several different groups of Japanese toys and said make a show out of that. But GoBots was produced as a separate thing before that.
ah,
So, but the GoBot toys were designed after the show. So, what I really want, I know now Transformers bought the rights to GoBots and stuff, and GoBot, occasionally GoBots characters will turn up in Transformers canon, in a comic or something, usually getting killed horribly just to amuse the fans. But I would love to go back in time and wonder why the guys who created GoBots didn't sue Transformers, because I'm not saying that it was a rip-off, that Transformers actually ripped GoBots off, but I'm pretty sure legally they'd have a case.
maybe. I mean, maybe they didn't feel that it was necessary. I don't know. That's a very good question.
Yeah, there've been a lot more, there've been copyright battles have been won and fought, over a lot more tenuous connections than, GoBots and Transformers have. It's one of those things where the original one gets superseded by something else and becomes the bargain basement version.
Well, it might have been like a cultural thing. Like it might have been. I had this friend who spent many, many, many years in Japan, and we were watching that game show where people injure themselves in horrible, horrible, humiliating ways. And I said, I can't imagine why this show hasn't been sued out of existence. And she said, well, they would never do that. The Japanese would consider that like very, very bad behavior, like very dishonorable. That you made the choice to go on this show, and now you're suing them. And I'm like, oh, I guess. So they could have seen it as like it might have been a cultural thing where, if it was a Japanese thing, they were just like, oh, you know what, it's just not worth it.
GoBots, I believe, was an American thing.
Well, then I have no idea what to tell you.
It's confusing. Like there's other shows which, thankfully are out in DVD, like Inhumanoids, which wasn't great, but it was set in the same universe as G.I. Joe and Transformers. They actually do little crossovers between them.
Oh, that's cool.
Like Cobra Commander turned up in an episode of Transformers, and I think there was
Cobra Commander. Sorry.
Yeah, he was called Old Snake, and it was the episode where
It
Transform.
sounds like Old Spice.
It was the episode in when Hot Rod and Cup and Springer got put into human bodies randomly.
I vaguely remember that.
And I can't remember the connection with Inhumanoids. I think it was like this newsreader or something was in both, but Inhumanoids is set in the same universe. And because, GoBots was bought by Transformers, that means GoBots is in the same universe too. And Mask was bought by by Hasbro as well, and they actually released action figures for two of the Mask guys as part of the G.I. Joe line.
that's cool.
So that means Mask is set in the same universe as what Mask is essentially a subcategory of GI Joe, and Venom from Mask is part of Cobra.
Huh.
So I was.
It's all connected.
One of the concepts I was working on I never got past ideas, but it was going to be a parody of 1980s kids cartoons, and it was going to have it was going to take all of the tropes of the 80s and take it to the next level. So
no, it would take it to the max.
It would have things like they've got a multiracial team, and they're the boss is convinced that they're there's not that they're entirely non-racist and stuff, but he's quite happily does not realize exactly how racist he is. It's like yeah, of course I'm the leader because I'm the all-American white guy, and this Chinese guy is only here to he's only here to tell us some sort of ancient bit of Chinese wisdom which we can then ignore.
Mm.
And it's just something I developed the idea while watching Mask, and I was trying because Mask is in many ways the most generic of the kids shows from the 80s.
See, I need to show you all of like the really crap like sugar breakfast cereal kind of quality stuff that I used to watch when I was little. Like there was a show for a while called Rude Dog and the Dweebs.
I remember that.
Okay, you've seen that. There was one oh god, there was a show called Kissy Fur, which was about this little teddy bear with a very unfortunate name. Like I think he and his father had been circus bears, and they escaped, and they went back to the wilderness, and so it was like all their wilderness adventures. But it was the most unfortunately named show ever. But like the Adventures of Teddy Ruxpin, which was I don't remember if it came before the actual Teddy Ruxpin doll or not, but like
it probably came afterwards.
Stuff.
It was cheaper to develop a cartoon to go with a toy than it was to develop toys to go with a cartoon.
True. Although there was this show, and I forget what it was called, but it sometimes showed like MTV kind of music videos in the middle, and it was like this one band, and they were in the real world, so it was kind of like a Take On Me kind of thing, and they ended up in the cartoon world, but it was this place called the Flip Side, and they had like a little Navi kind of fairy, or they had some kind of like mystical female guide, I remember that, and they were always trying to get back to the real world. And I think on one episode, like, the guy did, but then he voluntarily came back. But it's, like, very on the edge of memory. I think it used to come on after Smurfs.
Yeah. That does not, Kid Video?
Maybe? I don't know. No, it wasn't Video.
The Kid Video, according to Wikipedia, is, it involved live-action performers kidnapped by Master Blaster and transferred to a cartoon world called the Flip Side.
Was it? I guess it must have been.
A fairy called Glitter. I just looked up...
okay, then that must be again. They did have a fairy.
Although... I looked up... I just looked up the Flip Side, 80s.
Back in the day. Although we have reminisced so much, we are almost out of time, so we better get to the dictionary.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
We're going to have to return to the subject of 80s cartoons at some point.
Yeah, we can come back to it. But it is that time again where I'm holding the Oxford American Dictionary in my hand. Honey, what page should I turn to?
710.
Alright. 1 or 2?
2.
Out of 13.
12.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, THC. Tetrahydrocannabinol, the chemical ingredient in marijuana that causes intoxication.
So let's just talk about getting drunk. Excellent.
That's cheating. We're gonna talk about getting high, man. We should probably have Phil Bunny on then.
Might be a good idea.
That's true. But for this week, I have been the Omega.
And I have been Diamanda Hagen, who was really, really, really wishes I'd got time to talk about, like, jam and raccoons and stuff. Next time!
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? Let's continue this next episode. It'll be back to the 80s, part 2.
Da-da-da.